Hey guys, Dustin here, CEO of 630. Want to talk to you today about what makes one bike different from another bike. So lots of bikes out there, different frames. We've got a couple different bikes. We got lots of different bikes, different colors. And a question that always comes up is, well, what's different from this bike to that bike? And so it's a great question. So let's talk about let's segment into two different sort of areas, if you will. One is like aesthetic, and then the other is like actual rideability, comfort, things like that. So aesthetically, what makes things different? So I think, actually, let me rewind. When you talk about bikes, really what makes them different ultimately is different performance and different comfort. So when you look at a bike, it's possible that you may not be able to distinguish one from another. Now, there are some bikes that potentially have similar specs, and in that case, what really makes them different is just going to be color or potentially the look of the frame. So, actually behind me here, I've got a pretty good selection of our lineup of bikes. If you can see left to right here, we have the Reach Your Destination, the Ride in the Park, the Body Ease, Ride in the Park Men's, Explore Your Range, and Pave and Trail. And so on the surface, someone might look at this and say, well, what makes all these different? And when you look at them, what makes them different when you look at them is different frames, different colors, different tire sizes, different seat sizes, different grip sizes, things like that. So with that said, what makes all these bikes different really is you're going to feel differently, you're going to sit differently, you're going to be able to perform differently, you're going to roll differently on the pavement or the trails, things like that. So if you don't understand the different specs, you can always reach out to us so you can really identify like what makes this bike different from that bike. Now, we have a couple bikes on our website in particular, like we have our Around the Block and we have our Women's Cruiser. And so a lot of people might say, like, what makes these different? Now, in a lot of respects, the Women's Cruiser and the ATB are very similar. They have very similar frames. They have very similar tires, actually same tires. Now, the Cruisers do have a different seat versus the ATB seat. So the idea of what makes one bike different from another, I guess specifically, it really varies bike to bike to bike. It could be as little as a seat change, could be as little as the spokes are steel versus aluminum. You might see one bike price is $10 higher than another, and you kind of wonder, why? And it could be as simple as something like that. Then it's really up for you to determine, is there value in that little difference between one bike or another. And I think the Women's Cruiser versus the ATB on our site is actually kind of a prime example. The ATB is more of a stripped down, simple version of the Women's Cruiser. Women's Cruiser has, the fenders, the colored rims, and the upgraded seat. That's what makes the pricing different. But when you look at like the specs in terms of the hub, all those things are very similar. And so you're not necessarily going to see the difference in every bike you look at, or there might be big differences, but to you, you don't see the difference because the value isn't there for you. As an example, Women's Cruiser ATB, I just said, the seat's different. You might look at those and say, oh, that's not even that different. That's not worth it to me. And that's totally fair. And that's really true across all bikes on a lot of different bike brand companies. A lot of times they have 3 different tiers of bike. Price-wise, all 3 may look exactly the same. The only difference is one may have a better rear hub or a lower rear hub or more gears or less gears, and you might look at that and say, oh, I'm not going to pay $50 for that. It's just the same thing. So same is true of cars. You walk in and you're looking to buy a Honda, and the Honda Accord has 3 different trim levels. And what makes it different? And then the guy tells you, oh, well, this engine has 2 point whatever liter, and this has 1, and you're like, that means nothing to me. I don't care. I'm going to buy this one. And so that's exactly it. So it's really, definitely try to understand or ask questions about Specifically, if you don't see the value in what makes one bike different from another, ask, and then you can determine if it's worth it to you or not. If you're shopping strictly on the aesthetic basis and what, you just want to know if it's as simple as, oh, it's a lower frame or not a lower frame, then, maybe you just want to buy on the aesthetic point of it. So, if you look across all of our bikes, it looks just as simple as that. Versus a high bar and a step through or a non-step through. But underneath it all, there's also a lot of differences too. So I hope that helps explain, what makes one bike different from another, because ultimately could be nothing, could be a lot of things. Just do some side-by-side comparisons or reach out to the brand, whoever you're shopping with, us specifically. If you have any questions about 630 bikes, please shoot us an email, the team at sixthreezero.com. or call us 310-982-2877. And don't forget, on the top of our website, we have a body fitting quiz. You can take about 20 questions and it's going to narrow it down to a bike that is best for your usage. And if you can't find a bike that's perfect for you or nothing fits, reach out to us and we'll help find something for you. And don't forget, we have a 365-day test ride policy. If you don't love your bike, within 365 days, you can send it back. Free shipping both ways. Because our goal at 630 is to make sure we find a bike that's perfect for you.